Picture this. It's a beautiful, completely peaceful beach in December 2004. You've got kids playing in the sand, boats just bobbing gently in the shallow water, and then, suddenly, the ocean just starts to retreat. The seabed is left entirely exposed, fish are just flopping right there on the sand. Naturally, people start walking out toward the disappearing water, right? They're curious and totally unaware of what's coming. Then, way out on the horizon, this dark wall appears. It grows larger and larger. Within minutes, an enormous wave crashes into the coast and literally wipes entire towns off the map. Now, the crazy part? That disaster traveled across the open ocean at the speed of a jet airliner. Yet, when it was out in deep water, that wave was only about 1 meter high. It was practically invisible to anyone floating above it. So, you've got to wonder, how does a ripple that seems so incredibly harmless out in the open ocean suddenly transform into a 10-story wall of absolute destruction? Well, let's dive right into this explainer and find out exactly how the ocean becomes such an unstoppable force.
All right, Section 1, Anatomy of a Tsunami, focusing on the Earth science basics. To really get this, we're going to have to journey far beneath the ocean floor.
Let's actually start with the name itself. A tsunami is basically a series of giant ocean waves caused by a massive, sudden displacement of water. The word comes straight from Japanese, tsu meaning harbor and nami meaning wave. And there's a pretty fascinating piece of history hidden right in that name. See, Japanese fishermen would often return from a long day out on the open sea, where the water had been perfectly, totally calm, only to find their entire home harbor utterly destroyed. The danger had literally passed right beneath them, completely hidden in the depths, only unleashing its fury when it met the shore.
Now here's a huge myth we need to bust right off the bat. Tsunamis are not just giant surfing waves. The physics are completely different. Normal waves, they're just generated by the wind blowing across the water. It's just surface energy. But tsunamis are what we call displacement waves. That means the whole shebang. The entire water column from the dark, freezing ocean floor all the way up to the surface gets violently shoved out of the way by an earthquake, a volcanic eruption, or even a massive landslide. It's an absolutely massive transfer of pure kinetic energy.
So, how does this actually play out? Let's walk through the life cycle, starting deep down in a subduction zone, where these massive tectonic plates are slowly grinding together. Step 1. A huge underwater earthquake goes off when all that pressure finally gives way. Step 2. A giant section of the ocean floor suddenly drops down or thrusts violently upward. Step 3. This sudden snap instantaneously displaces billions of tons of water. And Step 4. Because water is a fluid, all that immense energy conserves itself and rapidly spreads outward across the ocean in a massive high-speed ring.
If you're trying to picture those fluid dynamics in your head, think of it like this. Imagine dropping a stone into a pond and watching the ripples spread out. Now, scale that way, way up. Imagine that stone is, 100 kilometers wide, and instead of dropping it from above, you use it to suddenly thrust the actual floor of the pond upward. That explosive displacement is what triggers the monster. It's not just a wave, it's the entire ocean reacting to a shockwave.
Here's where things get really terrifying, though. Out in the deep ocean, the wave is moving incredibly fast. We're talking 500 to 900 kilometers per hour. That's literally the speed of a commercial flight. But it's less than a meter high, which is why ships just bob right over it. But look at what happens as it nears the shore. The water gets shallow, so the front of the wave hits the brakes, but all that massive built-up energy trailing behind it, it's still pushing forward at full speed. So the energy compresses, and the water has nowhere left to go but straight up. We call this wave shoaling, and it is exactly why the wave height explodes right before it hits the coast.
Moving right along to Section 2, Deadliest Disasters. Let's look at how this physics actually plays out in the real world.
Looking back at history, underwater earthquakes are definitely the most common triggers, but man, they are not the only ones. In 1883, the Krakatoa volcano exploded and created 30-meter-high waves. Then you have the infamous 2004 and 2011 earthquake tsunamis. But look at 1958 in Lidoa Bay, Alaska. That wasn't a quake and it wasn't a volcano. It was a colossal landslide that crashed into a confined bay.
And the result of that Alaskan landslide? A wave height of 524 meters. Just let that sink in for a second. 524 meters. That is the tallest tsunami ever recorded in human history. It's significantly taller than most modern skyscrapers. Luckily, it was out in a super remote area. But it really goes to show the absolute raw power of rapid water displacement when the conditions line up perfectly.
But for sheer unthinkable global devastation, we have to talk about the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami. Triggered by a massive magnitude 9.1 quake near Sumatra, that displaced water conserved its energy and crossed entire oceans. It ultimately slammed into 14 different countries and tragically took over 230,000 lives. It was an unprecedented disaster that finally forced the whole world to wake up and realize we desperately needed coordinated international warning systems.
Which brings us to Section 3, economic impact. Because the toll goes way, way beyond just the physical damage.
The financial fallout is actually wildly different depending on where the tsunami hits. In 2004, the economic loss was around $10 billion, mostly impacting developing coastal economies. But then jump to the 2011 Japan Tohoku tsunami, that number absolutely skyrockets to over $235 billion. Why such a massive gap? Well, Japan's highly industrialized coast suffered severe cascading failures. The wave didn't just break buildings, it triggered the Fukushima nuclear meltdown and literally severed deeply integrated global supply chains overnight.
So the economic aftermath is this incredibly complex picture. You see certain industries just completely collapse. Regional tourism evaporates, major shipping ports are crushed, fisheries lose their entire fleets. But on the flip side, a major disaster also creates an immediate, if somewhat grim, reconstruction boom. Civil engineering, construction materials, disaster tech, these sectors suddenly see a massive influx of capital as nations rush to rebuild stronger.
For any investors or working professionals watching, these are the market impacts you really need to understand. A tsunami throws sudden, sharp uncertainty into global indices, but the real ripple effects, they hit global commodities. A destroyed port doesn't just mean local folks lose their jobs. It means an immediate bottleneck for international oil, liquefied natural gas, and global food shipments. Entire sector valuations can shift in a single day as coastlines pivot from standard commerce to mega reconstruction projects.
All right, Section 4, Engineering Defenses. Let's look at how human ingenuity is actually fighting back against the ocean.
Since we still can't predict exactly when an earthquake will strike, early detection is absolutely everything. Enter the DART system, Deep Ocean Assessment and Reporting of Tsunamis. We place these high-tech pressure sensors right on the ocean floor, and they constantly measure the weight of the water above them. The second they detect the tiny, almost imperceptible pressure change of a tsunami zooming over, they beam that data to a surface buoy, which bounces it off a satellite straight to warning centers. We're effectively catching the monster while it's still just a ripple. And when that wave inevitably reaches the shore, we rely heavily on coastal engineering. Japan has built these massive concrete seawalls to break the wave's energy. In flat areas where you literally can't run to high ground, we're building elevated evacuation towers. But we're also teaming up with nature. Planting coastal greenbelts like dense mangrove forests provides an amazing natural shock absorber, and we're now pairing those forests with smart AI sensors to monitor the ocean in real time.
India is actually a perfect case study for this shift from vulnerability to true preparedness. They have over 7,500 kilometers of coastline, sitting dangerously close to the highly active Andaman-Sumatra subduction zone. It's a massive risk. India tragically lost around 16,000 people in the 2004 event. But today, the story is completely different. Spurred by that immense loss, India now runs INCOAS, one of the most advanced oceanic early warning systems on the planet. It's a real game changer that protects not just India, but the wider region.
And finally, Section 5, Surviving Tsunamis. What you absolutely need to know, because all the tech in the world doesn't matter if you don't know what to do on the beach.
Let's bust a huge survival myth right now. A tsunami is almost never just one giant wave. The fact is, it's a series of waves, and the very first one to hit the shore is often not even the biggest. So many lives have been lost because people saw the first wave recede, thought, okay, the danger is over, and walked back down to the beach to look around, only to get caught by a much larger second or third wave. Never, ever return to the coast until authorities give the official all clear. Period.
You also have to know nature's built-in warning signs. If you're near the coast and you feel an earthquake so strong it's hard to stand, or if you see the ocean suddenly and dramatically suck back, exposing the seafloor, or if you hear a massive roaring sound from the water, like a freight train, do not wait for a siren. And whatever you do, do not pull out your phone to record a video. The golden rule is simple: run immediately inland and get to the highest ground possible.
A tsunami starts with a violent disturbance deep in the dark ocean, but it ends up reshaping entire nations. Look, we can't stop the Earth's tectonic plates from shifting, and we can't prevent underwater landslides. But through relentless science, incredible engineering, and just getting the word out to the public, we absolutely have the power to adapt, to survive, and to save millions of lives.
The ocean might look perfectly calm on the surface, but understanding the raw, unstoppable forces underneath is our greatest defense. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Until next time, stay curious and always keep learning.